And so it begins. Welcome everybody to the 5th Sensitive Skin Beer Virus reading. I'm Bernard Meisler. I am the editor-in-chief of Sensitive Skin magazine. See, sensitiveskinmagazine.com. Everybody here who's going to read tonight has been published in Sensitive Skin. And so if you want to see more of their work, you can go find it there. And what else? Oh, I also wanted to say that, so this is a 5th one. I've put the first 4 up on YouTube. You can go to SensitiveSkinTV, 3 separate words. And, or you can look for Sensitive Skin Readings and you'll find it. And I'll put this one up tomorrow. What else? And I was also just talking about, just doing a couple of little plugs here, that we do have a podcast. You can find us on Stitcher and iTunes or whatever. Just look up Sensitive Skin Magazine. And I've got a couple of our readers tonight have been featured on the podcast, Gerald Nicosia and Emily Carter. And I just kind of roped Bob Holman and Jeff Wright into doing it too. So I'm going to start doing those again at some point. I was trying to do one every week and it's just too much. I don't know how anybody manages to do one of those every week for months on end. It's yeah, it's a little labor intensive. At any rate, let's get started. Our first reader is Gerald Nicosia. He moved to San Francisco from Chicago in 1979, became part of the post-beat circle in the Bay Area, and he's also the author of the classic Kerouac biography, Memory Babe. He began publishing books of his own poetry in 1991, beginning with Lunatics, Lovers, Poets, Vets, and Bar Girls. And this fall, he's publishing his 6th collection of poetry, Remembering the Beats, and it's called Beat Scrapbook. So take it away, Gerald Nicosia.
All right, I'm going to be reading a few poems from Beat Scrapbook, which will be published this fall by Cool Grove Press in Brooklyn. So I'm going to start off with a poem called The Beat Father of Chicago Poetry. It's a poem for Paul Carroll. The Beat Father of Chicago Poetry. Paul Carroll was a drinker and a kind man. We split many a bottle of wine, and in my mind's eye, whenever I recall him, I see a half-empty bottle of Roditas on the table in front of us in a noisy, narrow, crowded restaurant in Chicago's Greek town. And Paul is smiling, as he always pours the wine into my glass before his. There was nothing this man wanted more than the company of those who liked him and his poetry. And from that gentle need, he created a whole world of Chicago literature and a community of writers who learned to give more than they took. The Circle Campus Writing Program, the Poetry Center, Big Table Press. He spun out an array of beautiful clothes for every poet and writer in Chicago to wear. For all of us in this city had been naked or near naked since the city burned down. And we all grew up so hard, naked in the cold, that we didn't know how hard our life was till Paul Carroll brought us warm and beautiful clothes and rose-colored wine to drink. And the poets and writers of Chicago got so drunk on that wine, they forgot who had brought it to them. They forgot the Beat Father of Chicago poetry as they went on to their various successes. They forgot that he had written it all 1,000 times better before any of them had touched pen to paper. They did not honor him, and his last bottle of Roditas emptied, but he still kept smiling and walked away from the table to a land called North Carolina and wrote us all letters on ruled yellow legal paper to keep us strong and remembering all the great poets before and after him that his life stood as a permanent tribute to, and his death will transform into seeds of endless rebirth. This is a poem for Bob Kaufman called The Man No One Hated. Bob, it's 18 years since we met. You looking raggedy-taggedy, but with jaunty beret and serape, stumbling, falling forward as you always did across Broadway and Columbus. Me yelling out, "Are you Bob Kaufman?" And you answering without hesitation, eyes awake and curious. Yes, 8 years now since you died when I was out of town, and I didn't get to see your jazz funeral up Columbus and the scattering of your ashes off Angel Island to create one of the best rainbows of the year. Besides the fact that you were the truest saint I knew, least concerned with material things, there's still this one great shining beauty, that no one hated you, maybe because you laid claim to nothing except our hearts, and even then made better than fair trade with your own. This is a poem from my friend Jan Kerouac. It's called In Memoriam Jan Kerouac. Jan, we walked together down Lower East Side streets, almost got run over by a few cabs. You got angry at me, dawdling and dreaming in the middle of New York streets. You can't do that in New York, she said. I can if I'm a philosopher, I said. Yeah, you'll get killed, she said. Maybe I don't care, I said. Oh man, you're weird, she mocked in raunchiest New York accent, but she liked playing mother to me and everyone around her. Maybe because no mother or father most of the time in her own life. Teaching people how to cook apple pie the proper way, actually more of an English pie than American, she lectured Stanley and Lil out in Northport, our nostrils filled with cinnamon and melted sugar as we all eagerly awaited the fruits of her baking. Jan was a lover of people, a loner and unloved herself, who always had a gift for everyone, didn't care that her purse was mostly empty, her bedroom full of luscious clothes, but no one to model them for. At the end, she kept leaving herself notes, and when her eyes got bad, she wrote on a chalkboard, "Remember to buy TV dinners," she'd write, and still forget to buy them. But the nurses at the hospital fed her for free, and she died full of the admiration and respect of more than a few of us who still care about her. This poem is called The Ghost of Kerouac. Excuse me, let me get a drink of coffee here. I'm going to tell you I have to drink coffee. Losing my voice too. Hopefully not the virus. Every time I walk the streets of Lowell, and the leaves are drifting through the early dark of October, and the poor teenage school kids are hurrying home past the eternal drugstores and cheap food places on ancient cobbled Merrimack Street, and the damp air of fall gets in my bones, and the smell of car exhausts rises and disappears in the low gray murk of Massachusetts heaven. I think of you, Jack. It's like you're walking with me, listening to my woes and telling me your own, pulling your jacket tighter to keep out the chill. Your eyes with that faraway look, like a veteran's 1,000-yard stare. You saw the future even before you died, and that's why you always looked so sad. It's so hard to care, you said, for people who are going to die. And then you did, but it didn't keep you from coming back. 1,000 nights, 1,000 times 1,000 nights. They can't keep you out of Lowell because even ghosts have to have a home. And yours is with the lonely, wakeful spirit of man and woman, wherever it's found. And this town will always be a lonely flame in the pained human heart of poverty and misery and everyday suffering. And as long as there's a human heart left to care about that, you'll still be here among us, to keep us company on life's broken road. And I'm going to read one more poem. This is for Ntozake Shange, who is a friend of mine, and I've also been working on her biography. It's just called Zaki. Zaki, I knew you were fragile the first time I laid eyes on you. It was a reading at the Art Institute in San Francisco with Jessica Hagedorn, and you were advertised as the famous one. But Jessica came forth, 2 guns blazing, a knife's edge in her voice that scared half the men in the room into covering their crotch. But you, Zaki, read with great poise, fast, never tripping on your exquisite stream of words. I could see you were a polished performer, but in your voice I heard something different. A soul's vulnerability and deep pain, a soul's vulnerability and deep pain. You read about the Black children disappearing in Atlanta, and it was as if it was your own child who had disappeared, been murdered. Many people saw only your fame. I saw a soul bared to the world. But I was too young myself then to understand what such nakedness would cost you. Our friendship started more than a decade later, when I sat next to you at a reading at City Lights upstairs and couldn't believe you had no one to drive you home. And so I offered and felt again the immediacy of your open, glad heart when friendship was handed to you. You had that shy look of someone who is always out of place in a society that is above and beyond them. I saw your tentative moves and reach toward a world that too often turns out to be hostile. And I knew we were very much alike. The first party I took you to, you sat in a corner dressed in gorgeous bright colors, shining jewelry, ruffles and flounces of every sort, and I wanted to protect you because you looked like a delicate flower that even too strong a wind could knock over or destroy. But always from within there welled up that colorless and exceedingly hot flame that burned its own indomitable path across the globe, that the powerful could only bow in awe of, and the poor and humble crowded close to warm their own flawed flesh. Zaki, you were a hero to all who suffered or were oppressed, a hero in spite of yourself. I know you'd have chosen any other path, but it chose you. This world that won't let Black folks alone had a special grudge for you with your proud and deadly words. You took all the medicines you could find to ease your pain, legal or not, and the payback caught up with you too fast. But you refused to die. You lived on buffalo wings, tequila, and 3 packs of cigarettes a day, longer than anyone would have bet on. Your head was a jukebox of every blues and jazz, salsa and doo-wop song ever written. I can still hear your wild laugh when you raised people's eyebrows with sassy talk of your famous pussy posse. You were a character, a card, an American original, broken free of the bars of slavery and leading the pack of lonely geniuses of unfettered imagination. You were burdened with the weight of all the needy, but you loved life's games. You were merry with the madness of it all. You had more enthusiasm and hunger for the next minute than anyone I ever met. There's no one I'd rather spend a quiet hour with, no one I'd rather hear a new story from or an old memory. And you remembered everything, your memory second only to your limitless kindness. I remember you in a hospital bed in Brooklyn. I brought you coffee and chocolate cake, excuse me here. I remember you in a hospital bed in Brooklyn. I brought you coffee and chocolate cake and caught you making your nurses laugh with bawdy tales of your own body. Molly Brown might have been unsinkable, but you were unshockable. You were working almost till the last minute, till the last ounce of sacred Zaki fuel had burned up in an all-out effort to lead us out of darkness and onto a solid path that, unlike your frail body, could not be taken away. Thank you.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
All right, Jerry. Thank you very much. That's Gerald
Beautiful,
Nicosia.
Jerry, beautiful.
Gerald
setting
Nicosia from
are so
Madeira,
deliberately exaggerated in
California.
Selby's book that they can hardly be equated with a recognizable empirical reality.
All right, I am going to now mute everybody else. All right, our next reader, let's see, you're still muted. Okay, our next reader is an old friend of mine. She was part of my original writing gang, New York City, back in the 80s at the Neither Nor Club, hanging around with John Ferris and Norman Douglas and Darius James, folks like that, and Miguel
we are
Pinero.
old now.
Yeah. I actually realized, I don't know if I ever told you this, I realized that we actually met before that. It occurred to me years later, we were hanging around Tompkins Square Park with Billy Sleaze. How's that for a...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a name I recognize, but have no, it's been 30 something years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember every guy named Billy Sleaze. There were so many.
Yeah, he was the gay porn star who hung out at Life Cafe and
Oh.
Vietnam War vet, like crazy
Okay.
guy. Yeah, yeah. All right, on that note, our next reader is Emily Carter. She's a freelance journalist and part-time novelist. She is the author of the classic East Village tale, Glory Goes and Gets Some. And now she lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with her
That is
nurse
correct.
husband, John Amentorp. All right, take it away, Emily.
Thank you. Did you say my first husband?
Did I? No.
Yeah, no, he's
Your
my
husband.
fourth,
No,
but
no, I
that's,
said nurse. I said nurse husband.
oh, nurse
Nurse
husband. Yes,
Yeah.
I was smart enough to marry my nurse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Take it
Well,
away.
so what we've got here, I thought I'd give you a little, these days been writing, natural history stuff about animals and ecosystems and insects. And this particular insect that I'm writing about is in fact the state insect of New Mexico. Starts out with a little quote, "Rage, rage against the dying of the light," Dylan Thomas. "Memo from the darkness, rage, rage all you want, darling, we'll make more." The tarantula hawk is just a wasp. Like all insects, it knows nothing but what it has to do, this being to sting a large, meaty tarantula, which will paralyze it, and then drag it into a specially prepared burrow. Quick as thought, it lays an egg on the motionless but still very much alive spider. Then when the larva hatches, all it has to do is dine on all that still living, still fresh meat. It squirms inside the spider, chewing and scrabbling, avoiding the vital organs to keep the meat fresh for as long as possible. Well, we all want the best for our children. But unlike the tarantula, we know it's coming. It, on the other hand, probably takes stock of its situation, thinks, okay, can't move, but at least it can't get any worse. We just wait and watch the digital clock go tick, tick, tick. We just wait and watch the digital clock go tick, tick, tick. Words are the opposite. They don't burrow in, they scuttle out, leaving our throats torn open. That's why silence is golden and no one likes a gabby old bitch, but what can you do but decorate the gash left behind by our words? We who can afford to lie still, play possum. I saw a possum once on my doorstep, but it wasn't playing. It was really dead. Something else must have wanted something to reproduce, to continue existing, to make it to the next traffic light, so it had to die. Likewise, the 56-year-old transit worker, George Walter Diaz, who at 56 had finally found a job he didn't hate and a woman to marry, who was finally doing so well and his family so happy for him. A virus wanted to live. So George Walter Diaz and 600 other people died this Tuesday. Not that they didn't want to live too, but the virus had things to do. First of all, it wanted a haircut. Then it wanted ice cream before playing golf on an afternoon garlanded by cool breezes and average humidity. The hatchling has no choice in what it eats, after all. It just eats whatever's in front of it. Like the virus, like us, chew through the years, minutes, seconds. There's nothing to do about it. But lie still and watch the clock. Watch the stars. Watch the bright and distracting content on the little Windexed screens in front of your face. But don't touch it. You might not be able to feel your face.
I don't know.
Is that it?
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Oh, all right. Short and sweet. All right.
Sweet.
Thanks.
Oh, PV
Thanks, Emily.
and oath to the contrary.
All right.
So, meaning he's putting the oats aside. The characters of Last Exit to Brooklyn.
Somebody's just talking. All right. So our next reader is Jeffrey Cyphers Wright. He is an artist, critic, eco-activist, impresario, and publisher. He received his MFA in poetry from Brooklyn College, where he studied with Allen Ginsberg. And from 87 to 2000, he ran Cover Magazine, and he's the author of 17 books of verse. 17, including most recently Blue Liar from Dos Madres Press. And currently, Jeff produces literary events in New York City at La Mama ETC, How Happening, and KGB Lit Bar, in conjunction with his annual art and poetry journal, Live Mag. All right, let me, where'd Jeffrey go? Jeff, where'd you go? Jeffrey, how come I don't see you? There you go. All right, you're unmuted.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great thing. I put on my fun hat. I do this every day for my 3-year-old granddaughter. We have a little puppet show every day. So just thought I'd put it on for everybody. It's so nice to see you all. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Bernard. Thanks so much. I was going to do a little like stroll through history of my personal history, but I'm going to start with Sensitive Skin, this wonderful book that the selected writings from 2016 to 2018. It seems so recent to me in a way. But I wanted to read the poem that I was so happy to have in here called Fake Lies. The donor class is warping the loom. Domination is damnation. Defiance is a shortcut to definance. We have to scrap for all that's left. Make of your suffering charms. The best things are free, like me. But cocktails cost an arm and a liege. Sipping a tombstone at Suffolk Arms, we revel without a causality. Nothing to it, just drip your lips into mine. Drive me insane. Ferrari in a fire lane, in a sanctuary city, racing toward a burning eternity. Only with you do I win by giving in. Thank you, Sensitive Skin. You know, it's great to have this community, and it's great. It's not that many people who do this much, that books and stuff like you do over there, and it's great to be part of it. You know, hey. Okay, let's see. So I was gonna go back in time a little bit with this book called Employment of the Apes, which came out in 1981. And it had a little bit of a theme to it. It's actually prose. And whenever I would quote somebody, which I was quoting everybody, I would just use their name. This is a collage here by Alice Notley, who did a collage for it. And Andre did collage and sent it to me right in the middle of it. This is not his collage. This was the guy who he did about 4. His name was Jim Moser. Andre's collage came in. Oh, here's a cute one. He went with the theme. Jim Moser, he was a brilliant guy. I met him over at the Strand. Oh yeah, and I just realized where the Nowhere, Wow Here Nowhere books was, and somebody took me over there once. You know, I was only over there about once to that wonderful place you ran over there. Here's Andre, right in the middle when I was writing Employment of the Apes. Andre Codrescu, by just a sheer accident, sent this postcard to me. On that day, I wrote a quote by Shelley Kraut, RK. It says, quote, "How can you help but not understand anything?" Which I thought was quite amusing. This one is called, it's 3679. It goes like this. Oh, it's got an hourglass by a friend of mine also, Lisa Foster Eshelman. Some of you also know. 12:16 a.m. Amusement forever by no means. Like all who work with fire, an open hearth brand betrays the steel forgers' faces and leaves them flushed from continuous conversion, the molten process illuminating their flesh. You take what you are taken with. you take the chance. What can you say? When you see the flash, you run, rank and file. Sit down, brother, get to the point. I believe in identifying the body, the pitiless breast of monstrous passion. Then there's artificial business. Out of it. Trouble is my business, Logan. And I think that Logan was from Logan's Walk. Here's a quote. I just want to read this one because it's got Greg and Bob and a couple of people in here. Well, you know, shit. Just to live or die is bad enough. How quickly it has grown to usurp so much space is not known. It is alone, the way you work and dream. That's the way I like it, Bob. Water turns into the white tub in the green room. Millions fuck in the tame afternoon. If this is Wednesday, maybe Greg will come by and pick up his tapes that are messing up the place. So that's why I was quoting a lot of people. Frank O'Hara's in there. This book just was reissued. I wanted to show you this a little bit. Party Everywhere. It's available. And it's a collage and drawings project that's Barbara Rosenthal with her Xanadu Press turned into this nice book and expanded it. And Party Everywhere, kind of like that other phrase, amusement forever, from 79 there. So this says, "Oh, Virgil, wherefore art thou? Lead me to the strays. Blessed are the mules, for they are true jackasses. Deliver us from ignorance, fear, and spite. Make mine a sandman. Roll on, Columbia, roll another one. Howling at the demo." I howled at a lot of demos. Thanks. And somebody said one time, "Why are you howling? Because you studied with Allen Ginsberg?" I say, "No, I didn't even think of that. That's really cool." No, I was doing it because I wanted something really fucking loud at the demo that would try to scare the police and give us a unifying cry, you know? This is from Blue Lyre from Dos Madres. And it's a fun little poem. It goes, a mix of sun and clowns. Alternating presences inhabit my skip ahead, hounded by bounding hours. I stand at the crossroads, annihilating afternoon, sticking shadows to the lens. What did you expectorate? Must we draw a diaphragm? Juno in a fishbowl, the jester also jousts, pulling strings from the wreckage. Call me oracle fodder, doing solitary, part-time, closing in on the opening now. Thanks. And shout out to Joel Daly down in New Orleans. He puts out so many great things, and he put out, did a little book with called Fake Lies Here. I did a crazy drawing for the back there, a little dog. And I wanted to read Blue. Blue. Blue! I want you blue! Blue light, full light breath, with dignity and liberty for all. Blue power, blue money, blue waves of blue energy. When they go low, we get high. You can say that again, Chief Blue in the face. Blue polar bear ghosts racing past, blue ink running down the street in blue diamond rain, blue jobs, blue fangs, blue change, changing everything. Yeah, everything's changed now, right? So I just want to end with a couple of newer ones. And Corona Diary. This is really not the real title. It doesn't have a real, well. Where beaver turns into pearl, I stand alone at 10 a.m. on April 21st, 2020. Go Jets. I'm glad there's no Jets around. It was a really bizarre experience. Right near Wall Street, you know, I was like, go down there on my bike and there's absolutely no one around. It's just the most bizarre thing. I feel like a wolf howling, you know. And that was on the news tonight about everybody howling now. Yeah, that's what we need is more wolves. So two moon poems, if you will. one moon poem. One moon poem. New moon. I've been awaiting your ivory arrival, your thin horns, some bruised clouds over Tompkins Square observe you warily. An earring on the sky, white lashes on a closed eye. All my troubles fall off their pedestal when you come back, stretching silence between thin horns. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you, thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cyphers Wright.
Thank
As
you.
always, bringing the fun. Bringing the fun. All right. Our next reader is Bob Holman. Of course, he's the proprietor of the Bowery Poetry Club. He's written many books of poetry over the years, and he now has two books, two coming out right now from YBK Bowery Books, and they were written 50 years apart. How about that? Life Poem was written when he was 19 and living in a commune in the Berkshires. Oh, if those hills could talk. And the other is The Unspoken. It's new and selected, written recently while living in New York City of the Bowery Poetry Project. And without further ado, here's Bob Holman.
Oh, hello, everybody. And thank you, Bernard. Thank you, everybody. Isn't it great to be able to virtually see these different communities overlapping and getting to spend some crazy time? I am here on the Bowery on the 3rd floor above the Bowery Poetry Club. And I'm all alone. And I never thought New York City could be lonely, but it's lonely right now, which makes this time, you know, that we spend together and hearing some poems really super. I see myself there on the screen, and I see this sculpture behind me. It's a sculpture by Sam Jablon that is called the Poet's Sculpture. And each one of these blocks is dedicated to a different poet. This guy, of course, is Thule. And he wrote some lines around it. Morning, morning brings me grief, he says. Boy, that's the truth. So Sam is a wonderful painter and poet. And I'll just go, because it's been so great to hear everybody. Jerry, it was wonderful to hear about Paul Carroll. When I was in Chicago, Paul was a taxi cab driver, and just an important, you know, such a wonderful guy. Got to remember, you know, those early big table books were so influential back in those days. And then you mentioned Bob Kaufman, who, of course, wrote the line that you can't use rainbows in your poem anymore, but there you are using rainbow in your poem, so he still lives on with it. And you mentioned Ntozake, which is something, because I wrote a poem for Zaki too, and I want to read that right now. It's from this the new book, The Unspoken. As you can see, the title has been edited. It used to be Bob Holman and the spoken word movement, but we got rid of all those other words. And just like most books, it's unspoken, that is, until you read it. So this poem is called A True Account of Ntozake Shange's luminous appearance at the Harlem Poetry Salon, spreading life, love, and poetry to everyone a week before she passed. And it opens up with the cast of everybody who was at that event at the Poetry Salon. Have there been other poems that have had a cast list at the top? I don't know. You just keep trying to think of, you know, what can the poem do now? So anyway, here's the cast list. Quincy Troop, Margaret Porter Troop, Victor Hernandez Cruz, Willie Perdomo, Nancy Mercado, Oreon Noel, Ed Morales, Mariposa, Pedro Pietri, Edwin Torres, Lydia Cortez, the Heckler, Felipe Luciano, Umar bin Hassan, Abiodun Oyewole, Faye Chang, The Basement Workshop, Savannah Shange, David Murray, Amiri Baraka, Spaceman, Gwendolyn Brooks, Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church, Jessica Hagedorn, Robbie McCauley, Lori Carlos, Miguel Algarin, Hector Laveau, Tulani Davis, and Bob Kaufman. Now, that's a great cast list. This was a great party. And of course, as you probably can figure out, not everybody might have been physically present, but that doesn't matter to us all. Nobody's physically present tonight. That doesn't count, does it? All right, here we go. It's just one of those Harlem Sunday afternoon salons at Quincy and Margaret's where the starting time is 2 p.m. and when you get there at 3, you're early. It's Victor's Day, PR Day, Boranquin, beneath the Spanish, he lyricizes, canonizes the debonair air, the melodious flow. Taino, Bamba y Plena, emergent Morocco, life in the shadow of Espanol, been there, being there, always there, home in Harlem. Where Willie opens the barrio, that corner where it all begins. Nancy's supermarket, joy and anger intermixed. Global warming, burning, mad sing flinging. We're all an ear here where Oreon gets the university woke. The Academy of Chevre, articulate, matriculate, tossing robes and mortars while chairing the high session Latinx 101 is Professor Ed, poet of back in the day, visionary journalist of El Jefe H. Who else but Mariposa and the liftoff voice of truality, flying, hello, Pedro is hovering in the wings, Nuyo Futurismo in La Casa, Edwin rising up and over and into, Locus, Hocus Focus, Lydia, oh Lydia, grounds poetry's history, her story, the crowd percusses, happening maracas, back to you, Victor, suavecito siempre. In otras palabras, home, Harlem, till all is said and almost done, which is el momento cuando Felipe shows up, allowing the hecklers triumph. Now you get it why they're called the last poets? Indeed, launching into young lord's politipo, call forth the last poets, Umar, Abiodun, trip, flip, race, space, time, place. Q's voice article from back in that day, changing everything into today. Esta misma casita de buenvenitas. Harlem River Renaissance. Cue the food, delicioso y perfecto. When a buzz in the corner combusts, a tsunami to drown in, she appears. Zaki walks in, queen, resplendent. Zaki appears, all lights shimmer down glow. Zaki's in the house, forks clatter floor. Zaki's here now, the last poets ain't last anymore. Zaki sidles up into Margaret's ear, whispers, we all aflutter to overhear. Then in laughter, Margaret lets it be known, there will be no nicotine for this woman on the throne. Instead, open the window on 7th Avenue. Jump, Zaki, jump. I'll not enable your death by cigarette, Sister Paulette. All you've been through, and a week later, she will pass. The doctor's daughter, holding court in Faye's basement, that poem about her daughter Savannah, laughing over that with David in Paris before his sax rollicked the everlast, Amiri there, over to Spaceman, her guitarist, laying down the sound bed, Gravel, her voice, formed poems from Coming and That Time at the Church with Gwen, handing off poetry's baton. Read the poems. And she did. Jessica, Robbie, Lori, they thought music. Zaki pushes, presides, tradition carrying, unburying. The ashtray she threw at Miguel spins into orbit, waltzing on the Princeton stage. The marriage of la poesía y el teatro. Oh shit. It's snowing in the poem. Ridiculoso. Each flake a different shape. Oh, Zaki into Zaki change Shange. Parade route of paper. Make that poem confetti sung by Hector to open for Tulani, who responds to the Times obit, a performer turned playwright. What? All praise, all things Zaki, queen of poetry, the choreo poem that went all the way to Broadway. How poetry changes lives, she lives. All praise our dear sister Zaki, the punch of kiss that will not miss, word after word that must be heard for color girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Bob tells me you can't put rainbows in your poems anymore. Step for Zaki. Step for Zaki. All praise into Zaki Shange. Praise all. Okay. So we all loved her. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Okay, so the other book is called Life Poem, and as Bernard mentioned, that's me on the cover back then. And look at what's here on the back cover, folks. There I am reading poems, reading a book to my grandchildren. There they are. You know, just like Jeff. You know, this is funny because one thing that's happening, both of my daughters moved to California. I don't know what you Californians got going on out there, but Daisy in Oakland just had her baby Helen a month ago, and Sophie in Los Angeles had her baby Eileen right before New Year's. So I got two new ones there. Ramona also is in Oakland. And what I do is I put on my Cat in the Hat hat and read them some Dr. Seuss. You know, what else are you gonna, it's a pandemic, folks. What else are you gonna do? All right, Jesus. Okay, so I'm gonna read the beginning and the end of Life Poem. You know, I was at Columbia and I saw in the Columbia Spectator this ad that said, artists wanted to create self-structuring community in the Berkshires. 1969, right? I mean, my goodness. So I applied and I got accepted. So that was like, boom, you're a poet now. So I said, better write a book. And to write a real book, I knew you had to be either writing the Cantos or Patterson. So this is a book-length poem. And it starts like this. Desperate now. I've started to write everything that comes into my head. I just lay it out right here as if the lined paper had become some sort of garbage disposal, accepting and grinding everything I can throw out. If this were a giant baseball game, this paper would be Willie, Say Hey, Mays, great center fielder, making deliciously slow basket catches of every ball hit by every batter in either league. Somebody asked me today why I wasn't writing more. I told them my muse is on vacation to the Riviera to get some sun. Oh, they said, I hope she will enjoy it. She will, I said, except she has no breasts, so her bikini doesn't work unless the wind is blowing from behind her so that the cups blossom out like little buttercups. There's a certain throbbing, I mean, I can't explain it, a sort of steady death pain. I don't know, I get poetical about it. Really, I just want to get rid of it. It's worse when my eyes bleed. Does that happen often? Well, only when the lids make quick contact. You mean like a blink? You mean your eyes bleed every time you blink? Yeah, pretty groovy, huh? To wash, the Ebos ram their clothes through small holes in wicker baskets which scrape the dirt off. Occasionally, a washerwoman will be so lucky as to discover a leftover pearl. Why do we play such games? Can't we realize our bodies? Somebody once taught me to wash behind my ears. Now, years later, I've washed layer after layer of dirt and skin from behind my bones, from behind my ears. Soon I will hit the bone, and that's good. Then I won't have to wash. I can polish. But sex is different. It's our bodies that become intrinsically awful things. To hold you is so sweet, yet you resist. Not even the wild tongs of bath oil and spray deodorants make me less the dirty thing. Remember, this is 1969, folks. I'm 19 years old. This is me. I mean, it is me. You know what I mean? I confess, I think of your vagina and your little hair hump. And today I shall slick down my old hair and wear a suit of morning sun, visit you with daisy arm, and finally take you to bed. I know your mother never taught you these things, I'll whisper, and then off with my morning sun suit, and with only our body toys, commence to love on the quilt that took your grandmother 12 years to sew. Stop, go back, reread. Here, you forgot these, the eyes. They plop down right here. Put them in the right way, or else watch the inside of your mind. Poems cough and metaphors hide. Do parables describe or disguise? If I wrote in rhymes, would you read easier? If I didn't write at all, would you breathe easier? Do the words get in the way? Have you discovered yet that this is not a book? Poetry is a stance. Accept it and see. If you close your eyes and see the dancing spots, you created art. Open them to the world, you created life. This life poem jogs along on the tip of your eyelash. Your witness.
All right. Thank you, Bob Holman. That was fantastic, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Everybody was fantastic. Gerald Nicosia.
It was a great reading.
Emily Carter from Albuquerque. Jeff Wright from 3 blocks away from Bob Holman at the Bowery Poetry Club. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. That was fun. We're going to keep on doing it until the quarantine is over. So December 2022, something like that. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We've got, I'm calling them the 3 amigos. We've got Mike DeCapity, D. James Smith, and Max Blagg. And perhaps a player to be named later. We'll see.
Great reading.
Yeah.
Great reading, buddy. Thank you.
That was fun, right?
It really was, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard.
I'm outie. Bye-bye.